Hi, Trevor. Trevor, are we ready to start? Trevor, sorry to interrupt. We are calling from Cape Town.
Okay, we will be starting in the next 2-3 minutes. Trevor is here already standing by.
Trevor standing by.
Yes.
Cape Town, can you hear me?
Yes, we can, Trevor, thanks.
Can you see us, Cape Town?
Yes, we can see you. Can you see us?
Unfortunately, no, we can't see you, Cape Town.
You can check with AK from IT.
Thank you for your patience, ladies and gentlemen. We're about to start. I'm going to begin by introducing myself. My name is Trevor Hatton. I speak for the National Consumer Commission. And then I'm going to introduce the panel that we have in front here for today's media briefing. In the center, to the left, you have the National Consumer Commissioner, Mr. Ibrahim Mohammed. To his right, you have the CEO of Ford Motor Company Southern Africa, Mr. Jeff Nemeth. To the left-hand side of Commissioner Mohammed, you have the Deputy Commissioner, that's Ms. Tezi Mabuza. To the right-hand side of Mr. Nemeth, you have Mr. George Godu. Then to the extreme left, you have the Motor Vehicle Industry Ombudsman, Mr. Johan van Vreden. And last but not least, on the extreme right-hand side, you have Mr. Mark Galvin from Ford as well. I'm now going to invite the Commissioner of the National Consumer Commission to make a couple of opening remarks, whereafter we will allow Mr. Jeff Nemeth to also give an address to the media. Mr. Mohammed.
Thank you, Mr. Moderator. Am I being heard?
Okay, let me see.
Mr. Moderator, sir, the Motor Industry Ombud, members of the media, executives and staff from Ford South Africa, colleagues from the National Consumer Commission, and others. Good afternoon. The primary function of the National Consumer Commission is to ensure the safety of products sold in the consumer market. The concern of the National Consumer Commission with regards to the Ford Kuga matter is therefore also the safety and well-being of all consumers who use this product. A product that poses any risk to our consumers does not have a place in our marketplace. Early in December 2016, a member of our staff who proactively read some articles informed the NCC, and we learned through the media about consumers who have had life-threatening experiences with the Ford Kuga vehicles. The NCC immediately reacted to this and called Ford to a meeting to respond to the allegations that were sending shockwaves through society. What was puzzling then for the NCC was that we did not receive any complaints from consumers about this. Arising from the meeting, the NCC instructed Ford to implement precautionary measures that would avoid further incidences. However, over the past few weeks, the NCC has noted with concern that many more such incidences took place, thus proving that consumers were still at risk of harm. It is for this reason that the NCC requested an urgent meeting last week to inform Ford of our decision to authorize a safety recall of the vehicle in terms that will be determined by the NCC. That is, if Ford did not come up with another proposal. As a regulator of consumer business interaction, we were bequeathed with powers through Section 60 of the Consumer Protection Act. The NCC can authorize a recall of any product if reasonable grounds exist that any goods may be unsafe or that there is a potential risk to the public from continued use of it. We were then informed by Ford that they were implementing a recall and were presented with a strategy. There is no monetary value that can truly compensate for the loss of life or permanent injury to any human being. And the NCC believes that recalling this vehicle is in the best interests of all consumers. It is regrettable that a life has been lost. We don't know if it is actually for the reasons, but it is regrettable that a life has been lost, and that other consumers and the public at large had to be exposed to a hazard that we never would have expected from one of our most prized possessions, and that being a motor vehicle. Consumers have a right to fair value, good quality, and safety. This is clearly captured as a fundamental consumer right in this country. It is with this in mind that I say one unfortunate incident is one too many. This issue has dragged on for far too long. The NCC granted Ford an opportunity to conduct an investigation to find the actual cause of fire on these vehicles, to enable them to repair or replace the faulty components, to restore value and quality of the vehicles in line with relevant prescripts of the law. In terms of the law, the NCC had to give Ford an opportunity to deal with the matter as a responsible corporate citizen. No brand is bigger than the law. We ask consumers to approach us when they have concerns with any product or services to enable us to respond quickly and effectively. In conclusion, we would like to thank the media for holding up the mirror that reflected the plight and dismay of consumers who are utilizing this Kuga vehicle. I thank you.
Thank you, Commissioner. We will now invite Mr. Jeff Nemeth to deliver an address on behalf of Ford Motor Company, Southern Africa.
Thank you. Yes. Okay, thank you. Good afternoon. Thank you, Commissioner, for the introduction and for the opportunity to share this announcement today. Just as a bit of a more formal introduction, joining me here from Dubai is George Gadou, as was mentioned. He's our Customer Service Director for the Middle East and Africa. And next to him, joining from Europe, is our Critical Concern Manager, Mark Galvin. I'd like to start by saying that the recent fires affecting the 1.6-liter Ford Kugas have been extremely unfortunate and concerning for our customers and for ourselves. I want to reassure you that at Ford, the safety of our customers is our #1 priority. We fully appreciate and understand the high level of concern and disappointment that has been expressed surrounding this issue. We are not aware of any injuries that have resulted from our engine compartment fires. Ford is built on providing our customers with quality products and service of the highest standard. While we continue to investigate the Kuga 1.6 engine compartment fires, based on the current data, we have determined that the fires are due to overheating caused by a lack of coolant circulation, which can lead to a cracking in the cylinder head and therefore an oil leak. If the leaking oil reaches a hot engine component, it can potentially catch fire. The data collected from our investigation and information obtained from the maintenance checks that we started in December, conducted by our dealers, helped us to identify the root cause of these fires. We have seen various numbers circulating. However, to date, we can confirm that a total of 39 incidents have been reported to Ford. Having said that, there may be some incidents that have not yet been reported to us. We urge anyone that has had a similar experience and has not yet contacted us to share this information with our Ford customer service team. We are now announcing a voluntary safety recall for the affected Kuga 1.6. Our investigation has enabled us to narrow the number from the originally stated 6,300 to a total of 4,556 affected vehicles. The safety recall is limited to 1.6-liter Kugas built between December 2012 and February 2014. Other Kuga engine derivatives, including the 1.5 and 2-liter models, are not affected. With this safety recall, all affected vehicles, including those that have already been checked as part of our maintenance check, must be taken to a Ford dealer as soon as possible. This safety recall comprises 2 stages. The first stage involves replacing affected components on the cooling system, verifying and updating the software, and conducting an oil leak check on the cylinder head. If any Kuga 1.6 owner sees any indication that the engine may be overheating or experiencing warnings on the instrument cluster, they should pull over as soon as it is safe to do so, switch off the engine, and ensure all occupants are safely out of the vehicle. For safety reasons, the bonnet must not be opened. We urge customers to call the emergency services if required, then Ford's roadside assistance. Supported through the AA, the roadside service is available 24/7. We suggest that owners save the roadside assistance number 0861 150 250 to their phones to assure that they can access the service quickly. I want to stress that with this safety action and with proper maintenance of the integrity of the cooling system, the 1.6 Kuga is safe to drive. The next stage of the safety recall will make the cooling system even more robust and is likely to involve further changes in parts and warning systems. We are currently ensuring that the changes we make are complete and thoroughly tested, and we will communicate with our customers as soon as this stage commences. We are making every effort to minimize inconvenience. However, we will need the support of our customers to complete this process, and we thank them in advance for their understanding. We are committed to keeping our customers mobile. Should they experience any engine overheating problems with their 1.6 Kuga, arrangements will be made through their Ford dealer or our customer service to provide a courtesy car while their vehicle is being repaired. We acknowledge that with the increased volume of repairs being undertaken, there may be instances where dealers are not able to complete the action due to a shortage of parts. Should there be any delay in fixing the affected Kuga 1.6s, owners will receive a courtesy car. Together with our dealers, we are working to streamline our processes to ensure minimal inconvenience to our customers. We understand that recent incidents have impacted on customer confidence in the Kuga. We will listen to our customers' concerns and reassure them with the safety recall actions, verifying the integrity of the cooling system, including maintaining proper coolant concentration. The Kugas remain safe to drive. As with all Ford customers, we will work with our dealers to ensure they are treated fairly. Each individual case will be evaluated on its merits, and at this stage, our priority is to ensure their safety. I noticed that the Jimmy family is here, so at this point, just let me once again offer my condolences and say how sorry I am at your loss of your loved one. I honestly, I can't imagine what you've been through. The safety recall we're announcing today involves cases where the vehicle overheated, resulting in an engine fire. While the case of the Mr. Jimmy's vehicle has not been determined, all investigating parties have ruled out an engine compartment fire. We will continue to communicate with the Jimmy family and the authorities through the channels that we've established. We also invite anyone else who has any information, including the family, who may have relevant information related to this unique and unrelated case, to share it with the authorities. In closing, our top priority is our customer safety. Thank you for your patience, understanding, and support in helping us communicate with affected owners. I would also like to personally apologize for any inconvenience, fear, or uncertainty experienced with our product. The well-being of our customers is the utmost priority to us, and we remain committed to keeping them safe in their Kugas. Again, I'd like to emphasize, should customers have any concerns or questions regarding the safety recall, they can contact Ford at 0860-011-022. Thank you.
Thank you, Mr. Nemeth. We will now open the floor to questions. What I'm going to do is I will take 5 questions at a time. We will start in Pretoria and then we'll move over to Cape Town there afterwards. With that said, the floor is now open.
Graham Hoskin from the Times newspaper.
Sorry. Just allow me to recognize the gentleman in front of you. Could you just keep your hands up for me, please? 1, 2, 3, 4, 5 in this order. We'll start with you, sir.
Nicholas Baer from ENCA. Mr. Mohammed and Mr. Nemeth, the impression has been created that you were very slow in responding to this issue. And while the fatal incident, you say, has not been drawn to the faulty parts in the Kuga, or at least investigations show this thus far, could you explain why it has taken so long? If the NCC as well as Ford is committed to customer safety, why was this issue not flagged earlier? Why was no action taken?
Thank you.
Mr. Nemeth, Graham Hoskin from the Times newspaper. Just in response to, or follow-up to my colleague's question, we understand that Ford was several times last year warned of the safety issues, that they bore striking resemblance to the recalls which happened in the US, and that these were issues that were flagged by different insurance companies across South Africa through their fire investigators' reports. Now, they were notified from January 2014 all the way up until August, and we've now been told today up until October. Why, if Ford was aware of this, are they only reacting now? And also, can you tell us, I understand these Ford Kugas are imported into South Africa. Where are they actually built and assembled? Thank you.
Where was the next colleague?
Yeah. Good day, everyone. My name is Johnny Sai. I'm with African News Agency in Pretoria. Just to inquire, I want to ask, how possible is it to reach all your customers? Because there are customers who buy cars here in SA, but they take them to Mozambique, some take them to Zimbabwe. Will you be able to reach them? And what measures have you taken as Ford Southern Africa to make sure that your customers across the borders, or even in South Africa in far-flung areas, get the message, because they could be driving the cars not knowing what is happening now? Thank you so much.
Next question.
Good afternoon, Anton Meyer from Pretoria FM. How will the recall be communicated to the Ford Kuga owners? Are you only making use of this media briefing of the media? Are you going to advertise it in newspapers, on radio? How are you going to communicate this to the Ford owners? Thank you.
Next question.
Okay. My name is Diabo Seto from SABC TV News. I would like to find out, some of our viewers as well as your customers have mentioned the issue of unavailable parts at some of your dealers, and that has resulted in those that have taken in their cars to be looked at being delayed in terms of the parts being very delayed. And one customer actually has told the SABC that her car will only be available in February, and in the meantime she doesn't have a car. And the last question is the issue of the courtesy car. We've also been alerted to the fact that some of the dealers want a minimum of 1,500 rands before they give you a courtesy car. Will this apply to every customer that's affected by this?
Thank you. We will allow, for the first question, I will allow or invite Commissioner Mohammed to respond partially, and then I will allow Mr. Nemeth to respond to the second part of the same question. Thank you. Mr. Mohammed.
Thank you. It's not on. I'm not sure.
Use this one. Use this one.
Thank you for that question. It is a question that we've been asked several times before as to why did it take so long. Now, as I indicated earlier, we became aware at the NCC of the problem after one of our staff members had read about the matter. I think it was around about the 8th of December last year. What then transpired is we began communicating with Ford, and we called them to a meeting which was held, I think, on the 14th of December last year, where the matter was thoroughly discussed and certain arrangements were made at this meeting. Now, Ford was prepared to do a maintenance check on all affected Kugas in order to attempt to establish what the issues were and to rectify them where this was the case. What had also happened was that Ford was conducting an investigation, and the NCC deemed it appropriate that this investigation be conducted to establish the facts and to establish what the actual problem was. Ford had initially requested a longer period to conduct this investigation, but the NCC had agreed that they should complete their investigation by the end of February this year and to submit a report to the NCC about the matter. Clearly, there have been several incidences after the 14th of December, which prompted the NCC then again to call a meeting with Ford on Friday past. I must add that Ford had also indicated that they wanted to meet with the NCC today. Because of the urgency of the matter, I believe that the earlier the meeting, the better, and we had the meeting with them on Friday. The NCC had taken a decision that if Ford did not voluntarily recall the Kuga 1600 Eco, whatever the model is, then the NCC would, on its own account, order such a recall. So yes, time has elapsed, but I think that the NCC, as a responsible organization, had met with Ford less than a week after we became aware of the problem, and that an arrangement had been made with them in order to carry out these maintenance checks, which was not quite a recall, in order to establish what the problems were and to rectify them. And in the meanwhile, they were to conduct this investigation. So even though time has elapsed, and I readily admit that it has, we also had the vacation period where most people were away on leave, and it was difficult to be able to get hold of certain people during this period. But that being so, the NCC has now taken the necessary steps to ensure that steps are taken to avoid and to prevent such actions from happening in the future. Thank you.
Mr. Nemeth?
I think I'm going to pass over to George here in a moment, but I think I'd just like to start off by saying that just by virtue of the nature of a fire, a lot of the evidence of what the cause was is consumed as part of that process. We investigated every single incident that came to our attention. Our engineers were working around the clock on this incident from the time that we started doing the maintenance checks. We started getting more data, and which allowed them to come up with much better conclusions. But I'll turn it over to you, George, and I'll let you elaborate more. There you go.
Thanks, Jeff. As Jeff said, when an instance like this, a lot of the evidence can be consumed, but it's also important to understand that the data and the volume of the data is important not only to understanding what causes the fire or an incident, but being able to rule out things that would take you down a path that you would waste resources and time chasing. So with the increase of the incidents that we saw as the weather got increased temperatures here in South Africa, later part of 2016, and with the number of vehicles we were able to inspect through the dealer maintenance, we were able to quickly pinpoint the actual cause and focus on that and getting to a resolution that, as we put it together, we'll be able to we're confident we'll address the issue in this particular instance.
For the second question, Mr. Nemeth.
Okay, thank you. Thank you for the question, Graham. The warnings from the insurance companies that Mr. Hoskins mentioned, we do receive those on occasion. We have received them on the Kuga incident. As I said, as we became aware of the incidents, we immediately started evaluating them to the point where we shipped 15 engines to the U.S. and Europe and for evaluation, damaged parts. At one point, we shipped a vehicle to Europe and to try to understand what was causing these fires. So yes, we've been investigating it as time has gone on. And I just to answer the second part of your question, the vehicles in question are built in Valencia, Spain. Mark, did you have anything to add?
No, only
okay.
The question about the actions in North America from previously, I think that was a question. So they were built in Louisville assembly plants, and they were early life failures, which we hadn't seen in the European production, and which were the driving vehicles with no coolant in them. So this is, now we're seeing the second half of 2016, we're seeing these cases in South Africa. We're seeing more in South Africa than anywhere else, and we're trying to understand what is the reason behind that overheat. We now know that it's an overheat and an engine oil fire. Our investigations are going on to find out what is the reason for that overheat and why just in South Africa.
Thank you. I think Tony asked how it's possible to reach all of our customers. One of the benefits of issuing a safety recall is getting the information, the communication information for our customers, not only from our records and our dealer records, but also from the government database. So we'll be implementing that process. We have already sent emails out as part of the maintenance check. We've asked our dealers to SMS all of the customers as well as part of that maintenance check. We'll do that again as part of the recall, as well as a letter that we will send, which has all of the information that the customers need to know. Having said that, we will also continue to follow up on all the 4,556 vehicles to make sure they're brought in, and any vehicles that aren't, we'll continue to investigate whether that customer knows of the recall, and we'll continue to try to track them down. Our dealers are our partners in this, and they keep records, as do we. Our warranty system also has all the information, the warranty information, the service information, the maintenance information on these vehicles, as well as the customer information. I think I already answered. I think I mentioned how the recall will be communicated. George, do you want to elaborate a little bit?
So we will use our dealer channels as quickly as you can with emails and the SMS. We've also undertaken to place an ad in the paper for those who may have obtained their vehicle secondhand. And then, as Jeff mentioned, an important part is to understand through the vehicle registration and the authorities what information they have. And we will deploy these as quickly as the process allows with immediate emails and SMSs as the program is released.
Thank you. And then finally, there are, as I alluded to, there is a parts, we expect a part availability issue, and there has been a part availability issue with the maintenance check. And we've ensured that customers have courtesy cars available to them. And if for any reason one is not offered, they need to call us directly, and we'll work with the dealer to make sure that happens. There is generally a 1,500 Rand fee, as you said, for tolls and fuel. It's a deposit. It's not a fee. And it's just to cover any road tolls or fuel tolls that are associated with the rental. And we'll waive that for any customers. They'll still be responsible for the tolls and the fuel, obviously, but they just won't have to pay for it up front. Okay.
I think the NCC would also like to contribute to the response for question number 4 in terms of the communication.
Thanks, Trevor. In terms of the responsibility or the mandate of the Commission in terms of the product safety recall, the role of the Commission is to monitor the process and ensure that in terms of the reported numbers, that if they had reported to us that there are 6,000, or in this instance, 4,500 cars that are already involved. For them now that they have to do, living from this space now, it will be for them to come up with their communication strategy and their full plan in detail. And the role of the Commission now in liaison with our product recall directorate, they will be working hand in hand so that we know that we get on this instance. Normally for most suppliers who would look for a monthly update. In this instance, we will agree on a shorter term so that we ensure that at least bi-weekly we would get an update so that we know exactly that in terms of the number of recalls, how many have they recalled, what is it that they are struggling with, and how can we assist. And then we would also be looking at their own communication strategy as well to ensure that the media that's being used in this instance that reaches all South Africans. And because this is a safety critical matter, it would be better in certain instances that we also relook at other strategies so that we have a longer way of communicating, like going on radio and going on TV as much as we can. And I think this is some of the manner in which they would be able to foot that bill so that we ensure that they carry that load of communicating with all the customers as much as they can. Thank you.
Thank you, Deputy Commissioner. We will now cross over to Cape Town. Cape Town, any questions on your side? I'm opening the floor.
Yes, we do have questions. Wyndham?
Thanks. The first one is just a housekeeping matter, please. If I can get the correct spelling of George and Mark's surnames, please, I'd appreciate it, and what exactly they do. I might have missed it in the beginning. The second relates to a point of clarity, please. George, if I got it correctly, seems to suggest that the higher temperatures experienced in South Africa during 2016 was the cause of the engine overheating, and which then ultimately led to the fire. But this seemed not to be backed up by Mark, who seemed to suggest, well, the jury's still out. So I'm just, can we say with sort of a high degree of certainty that the higher temperatures in South Africa was a cause of the engine overheating, or is that going a bit too far? For Mr. Nemeth, what is the what are the sort of the cost implications of the recall? What sort of amount has been set aside? Is it, I assume it's not going to infect Ford's investment decisions into the country. Yeah, I think that's all for me now. Thank you.
Okay, the second one will be Paul.
Good afternoon, Paul Vecchiato from Bloomberg. Just for Ford, yeah, the cost of the recall, and when you say safety recall, do you mean that cars will be just taken into the dealership something altered or changed or whatever it is, and then given back to the customer. And then for the National Consumer Commissioner, it seems though you've just relied on what Ford have told you. Have you decided to take any of the vehicles to bodies like the South African Bureau of Standards or the Council for Scientific and Industrial Research to see, for them to test the cars? Thank you.
Trevor, that will be all for now in Cape Town.
Thank you.
So my name is George Goddu, Goddu, and my title is the Director Ford Customer Service, Middle East and Africa.
And my name is Mark Galvin. That's Galvin, and I'm the Critical Concern Manager for Europe, Middle East and Africa.
So the follow-up question, if I heard it from Wyndham properly, was about the higher temps. And what we are found in our study is that the engine overheating leads to a crack in the engine head. So the engine overheats occur as a part of the environment more often in higher temperatures. So as we've seen now, the vehicles have aged, and we get into in 2016, we start an increase in the number of incidences as temperature increased in South Africa. It's kind of a natural cause and effect. It's not the reason for the head crack. It's just a preponderance or a more frequency of engine overheat possibilities. I don't know, Mark.
Yeah, so I think a lack of coolant circulation causes more of a problem in hot temperatures. So we're looking into what is the reason for the lack of coolant circulation.
Okay, and then the question, I think with both William and Paul both asked cost implications. We don't disclose the cost implications, and on top of that, we're still finalizing the phase 2 of the repair. But I will say that this is a responsibility we have to our customers, and it does not have anything to do with investment decisions that we're making in South Africa. Paul asked what a safety recall means, or George, one of the two of you, maybe you could.
Yes, the safety recall in this case entails having the car brought in, checking components and replacing components on the affected vehicles. We'll be doing that both in phase 1 and phase 2. In phase 2 will be a robustness action that will allow us to use the finalized, the remainder of the investigation to finalize the action and expedite parts for that robust second phase.
Yeah, I guess it increases the impetus for customers to come forward to us.
Okay, we'll be back in Pretoria. I'm opening the floor again for 5 questions. I note you number 1, 2, Antoinette, 3, Graham, 4, the gentleman behind her, and 5, Rory Sang.
Trevor, sorry, in Cape Town, just a quick follow-up from Paul.
Carry on.
Yeah, just quickly, just to the Consumer Commissioner, the question I asked him wasn't answered. Thank you.
Yeah. My apologies for that.
Okay. Am I on? Yes. Okay. Yeah. With regards to the question about whether the NCC had referred the matter to the South African Bureau of Standards or the Council for Scientific Research, firstly, the recall will only be official once we receive notification from Ford that they are proceeding with this recall. This has not been communicated to Ford as of yet, but within 2 days we would require such notification that the Ford Kugas will be recalled. Now, that will give inspectors an opportunity to monitor the recalls. In terms of our NCC guidelines, which were published for the nation on recalls, this is a requirement. And we are enabled then to monitor the recalls. The NCC had not received any complaints about the fires up to Friday last week. We'd received a few complaints about the Ford Kugas, but about unrelated matters after these fires became known in public, but not about the fires themselves. It was this morning that some consumers visited the offices in the company of their legal person, and where a batch of complaints were then handed to the National Consumer Commission. We obviously haven't had an opportunity to assess them yet and to go through them yet. And what we will do is we will assess these complaints, and then they'll be dealt with on a one-to-one basis. And this does not mean, this recall does not mean that it is the end of the matter. Should there be any further issues, the NCC can still conduct a thorough investigation surrounding these matters. So allow us time in order to see what develops, in order to decide whether or not the NCC will then conduct this major investigation. Thank you.
To respond on it, I think in the initial meeting when we met Ford in December, we brought in our colleagues. We had the National Regulator for Compulsory Specifications. That is in line with one of our provisions in the Act that says that any good has to comply with a set standard. That's why we brought in the National Regulator for Compulsory Specifications. And along as well, today we have the Ombuds for the motor industry. That was also available in the first meeting when we met with Ford. And if we have to conduct an investigation, as the Commissioner has said, that those will be the structures that we'll still use so that they assist us with their expertise in those certain areas where in the NCC doesn't have the expertise. Thank you.
Sorry, it's over here. I just want to ask, what's going to happen to the customers who have their cars, the cars which have already burnt out? And what about consumers who are too scared to drive these cars, even if you are promising to replace these parts? But we've spoken to a number of consumers who say they don't want to drive these cars and they still feel very unsafe, even if these parts are replaced. Akram, SABC News.
Antoinette
Slabbert from MoneyWeb. My first question is to the Motor Industry Ombudsman. If the NCC did not receive complaints, it stands to reason that complaints might have come to you as a first port of call. Did you receive any complaints? If so, how many? How did you deal with it? And if so, why did you not alert the NCC about the safety issue? And then my other question to Mr. Nemeth: in the life of a Ford company internationally, and in the life of recalls, how big is this recall? I've heard people in the industry saying, cars burn out every day all over the world, which sounds very strange to me as a journalist and as a consumer. Could you just put this into context in the manufacturing industry?
Graham Hoskin again from the Times. Sorry, Mr. Nemeth. Just a couple of follow-up questions to what my colleagues were asking, and then one of my questions. You say that you, in terms of being alerted by insurance companies, Ford was alerted. If so, and as you say, why did it take Ford so long to put out a warning? If you knew from insurance companies that there was a problem with Kugas in South Africa catching a light, why only in December was an alert put out on Ford's website? And will the people who were alerted, will they be forced to take account? Will they be forced to resign over their failures to take action? And if not, why not? And then I understand there was a problem a good couple of years ago with another Ford. I think it was the Pinto, where the fuel tank was rupturing from rear-end collisions. Given those number of cars which were catching light and the people who died in those, has Ford not learned any lessons from that which they could have carried forward to how they would deal with the Kuga issue? Thank you.
Mark Smythe from Business Day. Two questions. The first one is Ford products generally have a limp mode if they start to overheat. We've seen it with other models before. So why is the Kuga not going into limp mode and notifying the owners? Why is this essential safety feature not working? And secondly, the reason you're describing for the fire sounds pretty much identical to one of the numerous recalls in the US on the Ford Kuga and Escape in 2013 with relation to the coolant, the software and everything else. So the cars that have been on sale and have been driving in South Africa for the last 3 years, why have they not been updated to replicate the changes that were implemented in the US already?
Rory-san.
Rory Sang from The Citizen. Just to elaborate on my colleague's question, people don't trust the brand anymore. They don't trust Kuga anymore. And as much as you say you will repair and maintain these vehicles, what happens to consumers that actually don't want it? Do they have an option of swapping vehicles, getting a cheaper model or the same valued model? Thank you.
Thank you. I will close the floor and invite Mr. Nemeth to respond.
Okay, I think the last question and the first question were the same. And they revolve around customers that no longer wanted their Kugas. I think what's important is that, as I said in my opening statement, these are our customers. We're going to listen to them. We're going to reassure them that their vehicles are safe to drive with the safety action and ensuring the integrity of the cooling system is maintained. We would say, obviously, that there's no reason to lose faith in your vehicles. However, every Ford customer has our assurance that each individual case will be dealt with on its own merits and that we'll treat all of our customers fairly. How big is this recall? George, obviously any recall is important and critical and receives the highest priority. There is nothing more important to us than the safety of our customers. And I can't stress 1, 10, there is no number, right? This is an important issue for us as a company and for our customers, and we'll ensure that we take care of them. And then Graham asked again, why did it take so long? I think we covered that. Was there anything else that we wanted to add?
Okay, I think Graham asked about, what happens if people, in the process, and I think what I want to do is reassure and reinforce that, collecting the data is really critical to to addressing this kind of issue quickly and accurately and effectively. And there's a process to do that, a disciplined process, and Ford has followed that throughout the process to make sure that we know what the problem is, that we develop a strategy to address it as quickly as possible, and we communicate with the customers. And now that we have that information, we can communicate with customers now more about what we know is going on, what we're going to do, in many cases what they can do to help with that in terms of communicating with us and helping us with the maintenance of their vehicles. So those are all important things that we're now able to do. And with that discipline approach and using the data, we can help them with the confidence in the vehicle and understand that it is safe to drive if the action is taken and the coolant system integrity is maintained. coolant levels, coolant concentrations, there's the vehicles are safe to drive.
I think to question number 4, we're going to allow Ford to respond while they're on the floor, and then we'll go to the Motor Industry Ombudsman for his question.
The limp mode question?
That's correct, sir.
Mark?
That's part of our investigations, is to try to find out what the warnings are to customers, what the failure messaging is, and that's part of the ongoing investigation. And there was a question about Pinto fires. So those were questions, those were incidents from the 1970s, and much of the processes we have for investigating issues that come from customers or from government authorities are based on those lessons learned from that. So we do a very thorough process. We react as quick as the information comes in that leads us to a conclusion of a substantive cause of an issue.
Thank you, sir.
Ladies and gentlemen, the role of the Ombud is a very challenging one, and one of the challenges that we face is that we have to act in a reactive way rather than a proactive way to keep our objectivity. And therefore, we have to rely on cases reported to us before we can react to those cases. In the case of the Motor Industry Ombudsman, only one single case was reported, and it was not an actual fire. It was purely just out of fear of driving the vehicle. That particular consumer was referred to Ford, and then I must reiterate that our action also depends on whether it is the matter has gone past our mandate. And that is very important to realize, that the Motor Industry Ombudsman is still subject to the code for the motor industry, first of all, and also to the Commission. And once it's gone to the Commission, it is the Ombud's challenge then to wait for the Commission's instructions before it can act. And once again, I must just say that our action is reactive rather than proactive to maintain our objectivity. Thank you.
Sorry, Trevor, can we just hear when that complaint was lodged with the Ombudsman?
During December, while our office was actually closed for the year.
Thank you, Pretoria. Cape Town? Mzi?
Cape Town, there are no questions anymore for this round.
Thank you. I'm going to open the floor for a last round of questions.
Sorry, one of my questions was not answered. I asked about the banned cars, the cars that have already been banned. What's going to happen to those people driving those cars?
That's a very similar answer to the one I gave. I'm sorry I didn't elaborate that. The burned cars obviously are I'm sure they're insured. The insurance is a private matter between the customer and the insurance company. As these cars have burned, even while the insurance company and the customers are having conversations, we've provided courtesy cars to those customers as well. And so we'll continue to interact with those customers and through our dealer body, and hopefully we'll get them into another Ford vehicle. But that's the way it would be handled.
Okay, I'm opening the floor for a last round. I'm noting as follows: 1, 2, 3, 4, 5. I'm sorry, bro. Let's see if there's more time left. Okay. We'll start with question number 1.
Hi there, Chad Lukoff from Auto Trader. This issue has caused a little bit of a concern with regards to the second-hand value of the vehicle. Many of the dealerships are lowballing customers that are coming in, wanting to trade in the vehicle, and not offering them market-related value. Is there a way that you're going to try and regulate that, or you're just going to leave it to disintegrate, essentially?
Number 2.
It's Ruben van Niekerk from Automobile. New cars are subject to the hundreds and thousands of kilometers of testing. How confident are you that this retrofitted fix will be reliable for the life of the vehicle? And also, 2014 Kugas will be coming towards the end of their warranty. Is there any speak of extending the warranty from when the car was repaired? Thanks.
Number 3.
One of the issues was around the fact that these particular Cougars, they were sort of 3 or 4 years old, so wear and tear had contributed. Can people who own later Cougars be assured that this isn't going to happen to them when the wear and tear starts on their 1.5s, which I think succeeded the 1.6? So have the later Cougar owners got a nasty surprise in store for them in the next year or two? And the second question is, if one looks at the safety of vehicles generally internationally, in a typical year, 40, 50 million vehicles are recalled for safety issues. In a single month in the US, typically there are 5 mass recalls for fire-related issues. Are cars safe? Are motor companies putting out cars too quickly without the necessary checks? Can we actually be sure that the cars you're putting out are safe before they go out?
Number 4.
Mark Smythe again from Business Day. So I'm not sure that my second question was answered earlier, which is the one of the similarity between this recall and what needs to be fixed and the 2013 recall in the US, and therefore whether the changes that you're aware of that had to be made to the Escape were made to vehicles sold in South Africa as a regular service campaign here, and if not, why not?
Graham Huskin again from the Times.
No, Graham. It was Antoinette.
Oh, sorry.
I granted Antoinette that opportunity. Thank you.
Mr. Nemeth, it seems to me as if you are passing the buck to the insurance companies. You manufacture a vehicle, there's a problem with it, it goes up into flames, and you say the insurance company and the client has to sort it out. What about cars that have not been insured? What about cars that burnt out where a claim has been denied because it's a mechanical fault? And surely if the insurance company is the one who had to pay the cost, I mean, how can you just say it's between the client and the insurance company?
Sorry, Mr. Nemeth, Graham Hoskin. We understand, we've been told about 2 cases where people have brought in their cars to have their coolant systems replaced, only to drive off and have their cars catch fire. Exactly what is the coolant system that is being done, and why are these cars still catching fire? I mean, we've spoken to 2 people whose one woman got within 30 minutes of driving off with her car, and then the next minute it was engulfed in flames. How sure are you that these coolant checks that Ford has been instructed its dealerships to do are actually working? Thank you.
Okay, we are closing the floor for questions now. I will allow Ford to respond to the questions. Thank you.
Okay. I'll just take them in the order, and Mark, I'll get to yours as I go. Trevor, you mentioned residual values. I think that what we're going to do is continue to work with our customers. And I think as we demonstrate the robustness of our engineering department and the robustness of the repair, I would hope that customers and the market in general regain faith in the Kuga. But we will take each of the customers on a case-by-case basis. And our dealers will work with them, and they'll try to come to a solution that's acceptable. As far as the testing, how do we know that this is a robust fix, and the extended warranty, George?
Well, it was mentioned, I think, that we have thousands of hours in developing a car, and now we have the benefit of that development in additional to the actual field data that we get from the investigation and from the field from doing the checks. So we go back to the same product development process. We follow a very disciplined quality process to understand the root causes and make sure that we're addressing them in a way that we're confident that will effectively address the issue that in this particular instance. And I think that's where the key is the amount of data you can get helps you to feed that rather than from a design CAD, but from field data. So that's the benefit there. And I think that really it's that information and that data that in the discussion earlier about the U.S., the field data from the vehicle in the U.S. was very different from the field data that we see in South Africa when it occurs in the life of the vehicle. We know the vehicles are left-hand drive versus right-hand drive. There's a significant difference in those vehicles despite sharing an underlying platform. And that's why it's important that we understand and don't jump to a conclusion or conjecture, but allow the data to lead us down a path that's the quickest way and the most effective way to addressing the concerns. And in terms of the extended warranty, right now we're really focused on getting the recall completed. We don't expect to be an extended period of time out of the vehicle off the road, and we are addressing the mobility of the customer in that case. So at this point we have not discussed extending the warranty for these customers. And I think that covered it.
Yeah, I think so. I think David, your question was, did wear and tear contribute to any of these issues? And then the second one, I think, was more of a general automotive industry question about around the question if cars are safe. The wear and tear question, George?
Well, I think, again, we have to go on the information that we have, which is that these instances are occurring when vehicles have extended mileage on them. So that's part of the ongoing investigation, understanding what the root cause that leads to the overheat. But we are acting quickly to take the recall and do the first phase and address with the customers so that we can reestablish or ensure that the integrity of the system is there, and then engage our customers on the maintenance, and we'll address how the permanent fix or the second fix can help with the longer term repair. The other question was on the 1.5, and the 1.5, is a different engine, and there's no data. There's been no instances or reports of any kind of similar concern on that engine. So we will, of course, follow our process and understanding those in a disciplined manner if that occurs.
Yeah, just to add to that, so anything we learn from the investigations of root cause on the 1.6, we would carry through to 1.5. We know there's a different schematic to the 1.5 compared to 1.6. There are other changes that happen on 1.5, and we've seen no field data to suggest there's any issues with 1.5.
Right.
And then I think just on the general question, thank you for the data, David. I think what we are constantly evaluating our engineering processes, our design processes, and making improvements to those. I can verify that our cars meet all the regulatory requirements. All vehicles that we build meet all the safety regulatory requirements. And we're confident that our engineering system is robust and world-class. And I think that's really what's important is that we know that we're meeting all of the expectations from that standpoint. The similarity in this of the 2013 Escape, did we fully answer that?
So I'll try again. So we know that the Escapes built in North America were all automatic transmissions. Any software updates would have been carried forward into the European produced vehicles. We know that the vehicle was the issues that caused the loss of coolant were related to the assembly process and supplier processes in North America, and we saw none of that evidence in the European supply base built vehicles at that time. So we had two different two different manufacturing sources with unique issues in the one manufacturing source. And that's why we didn't do any more work on the European-built vehicles, because the root causes weren't there.
And I think Graham had one, the last one was about 2 instances. Graham, we have not been informed of, we've got no information on any vehicles that have caught fire after the safety check is being done. So we would, of course, request that information be brought forward to the dealer or to Ford directly as soon as possible, so we could evaluate that and that to go into our data. That's something that would be very important for us to know. At this point, we have not received that information.
Yeah, I can say, though, I think, Graham, I read your article. I think it was in the Eastern Cape was one of the instances that you're talking about. That was a vehicle that was bought used. It went through the pre-delivery process, but did not go through the maintenance check. And so it should have, but it did not on that one particular item. We have verified that by looking at the service records.
Okay, I'm going to declare this briefing closed. What's going to happen now is, if there's anyone that wants one-on-ones, if there's any questions that you feel that was not adequately addressed,
I'm sorry, Trevor, my question about cars that are not insured or where the insurer doesn't pay was not answered.
Yeah, we'll work with the customers and the insurance companies, as we always do, on a case-by-case basis.
Is that okay, Antoinette? Thank you. So you'll respectively contact ourselves, the Consumer Commission, the Office of the Motor Industry Ombudsman, and Ford if you have any further questions or any requests for one-on-ones or any further engagements. Thank you. Thank you for coming out. Thank you for supporting us and for being here today.
All right, it's now 16:30, and those were live visuals from Pretoria, where the National Consumer Commission, alongside Ford South Africa, were briefing the media on the saga surrounding their Kuga SUVs that have reportedly been catching fire. The NCC started by saying that it is regrettable that a life has been lost, even though at this stage they are not certain if their death was as a result of the car's manufacturing fault. They said no brand is bigger than the law and reminded consumers that they have every right enshrined in the Constitution and law to report any faults on any products so as to avoid such incidents in the near future. Ford opened their statement by saying that the fires have been a huge concern for their customers and themselves, adding that the safety of their customers is their highest priority. They say they are currently investigating the cause of the fires, which they think is because of an overheated engine, and this assumption was based from data collected from the affected vehicles. He also confirmed that 39 incidents have been reported to Ford so far and encourage all those who might not have reported their vehicles to do so immediately. They also announced that a number, which is 4,556 vehicles, will be recalled, and those are the 1.6-litre models from 2012 to 2014. Now, these should be taken to a nearby Ford dealer immediately, where the replacement of the software as well as the oil leak checks will be conducted. They urge customers to also call the emergency line, which is 0861 150 250. That number again, 0861 150 250 for swift responses. The next stage of the safety system will look at replacing the offending parts mainly, which is the cooling system. They also added that in any delays of fixing off the vehicles, owners will receive an interim car. They further offered their condolences to the family who lost their lives in a Ford Kuga, and they promised to keep communicating with the family in the investigation and updates on what they can do from now on. They also apologized for any inconvenience as well as fear caused by the scandal. The NCC also said they will be following up with Ford on their latest pronouncement on a weekly basis, as well as communicate with the customers to see if indeed their concerns had been dealt with accordingly. They also opened their doors for any customers who is dissatisfied with the level of service in regard to the safety recall. Let's take a quick ad break. I'm back with more news after that.